first Daniel Negreanu Grudge match. We are currently waiting for Doug to come sit.
We got him on the same side of the table for you guys this time, after about 700 messages in chat last time.
Oh, 700. I would take the over on that.
Yeah.
Can you turn down I got it. All right, so last session, Doug picked up a 220K win approximately. So pretty good for Doug. He's going to be taking a 110K lead into this challenge, or into this day. And it looks like they're both sitting, and we are off.
Awesome. For anyone who didn't join last time, I'm Jamie Kerstetter, and I'm joined with Mike Brady. Do you want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the VP of Upswing Poker. I handle a lot of the marketing efforts and sort of content stuff over at Upswing. Today, I'm mainly going to be calling the action, making sure you guys know what's going on with these hands, and then Jamie's going to kind of man the chat a little bit more, and she's a little bit more of the she's got a little bit more spice in her commentary. So I'm going to handle the simple, what are the cards, what are the chips. Jamie's going to handle the more extracurricular stuff, if you will. It looks like Doug is sitting out. Likely so Daniel gets the button, because Daniel's owed 2 buttons in this challenge, meaning that Doug has played 2 more buttons than Daniel, which playing the button is obviously an advantage. So it looks like Doug's going to try to give Daniel the button to start out here.
Miso asks, why is it 12.5K hands or 25K hands? They put a clause in that whoever is losing after half of the hands are complete, they have the option to quit or keep playing. It's like a mercy rule, I guess.
Yeah, Daniel, that was Daniel's idea to add that rule. I mean, for kind of obvious reasons, Doug wanted to play the maximum amount of hands possible. But then Daniel kind of wanted to have that clause, like, just in case he was getting buried halfway through, he wouldn't be forced to put in another 12,500 hands. Can't blame him. I mean, he's never really played serious heads up online before, so it's understandable to not. I mean, he wouldn't want to find himself down like 1.5 million or something like that, and then be forced to play another 12,500 hands. So definitely don't blame Daniel for that at all.
Yeah, that'd be brutal. It could have turned out like one of the Jungleman Dur type things where they just never finish it.
Right, because the hole is just so deep. And it looks like we're going. Daniel on the button here. First hand. Daniel's going with a standard 2.5 open size to 1K. Doubtful we're going to see any changes there. Get the ace-9-7 flop. Daniel c-bets for minimum, which is the 5th pot. That's been his kind of standard c-bet sizing on at least a decent number of board textures. And in general, Daniel's really shown that he really likes that small bet. Doug immediately puts in the check raise, 2,200, and gets the fold. Got a raise and a call on the other table. Get the 10-8, 2 hearts. Doug going with his size of 910, which is about 2.25x. He's keeping that up as he did last session. We did see a small variation last session where he started making it 930 instead of 910. You almost wonder, with such a minuscule difference, you almost wonder if that was just like he didn't even realize he was doing it differently or something, but maybe that was an actual adjustment and he's back to 910 now. D-Negs with a 3-bet and take it on the right table, and looks like we have a c-bet gotten called on the left. A very dynamic board here, 10-8, 2, 4, 2 hearts and 2 clubs. Got the 10 of spades on the river. Daniel goes for the bet after checking back the turn. See what Doug wants to do. Doug with a c-bet on the ace 5-5. You'd expect a small size on that board from Doug, and he does go for the small size. Daniel value betting the 8-6 on the left successfully, taking the small lead on the day.
Do you expect the raise sizes to change much if the stacks get incredibly deep, if we're dealing with 500 big blinds apiece?
When we're talking the opening sizes on the button, I really doubt they would change it. I could maybe see some 3-bet sizing differences, maybe some 4-bet sizing differences, but it would have to get quite deep for them to consider doing that, I believe. But you never know what the player's game plan is coming in, so could see some changes faster than I would expect. We have a 3-bet pot on the left table. Daniel making a standard 3-bet to about 4,100, getting the call, and he got the 10-8-5 flop. Let's see what he wants to do. I assume that was a 1/5 pot size c-bet on the left there, Jamie, from D-Negs?
I was just reading the chat. Take myself very literally.
Well, based on the pot size, I'm almost certain. I was looking at the chat for a moment too.
I think they're saying our volume is a little bit low, so I'm going to try to mess with that for a minute.
Sounds good. Doug, wow, with the 5-2. Looks like he got 3 streets of value there in a single raise pot to take the small lead on the day now. It's probably up about 10K. D-Neg's going for the overbet here, about a 1.5x overbet in this 3-bet pot. Let's see what Doug decides to do here. Doug makes the fold. Daniel picks up a nice spot there. Got a 3-bet on the right. Doug makes 4,100 over 1K. D-Negs gets the 4-bet through. First 4-bet of today's session.
I love chat because they will say that the volume is low, and then if we mess with everything, they say, "My ears!"
It's one or the other.
They're awesome.
Doug with the mid-sized c-bet, about 40% on King 10 3-2 spades. Daniel calls, and we get the 4 of diamonds on the turn. See what Daniel decides to do here. You'd expect a check with his entire range, and he does. Now, will Doug fire the double barrel here? He checks back, and we get the 8 of diamonds.
A lot of people wanting to see hole cards. Alex Palmer, sorry, but that was not agreed upon by Daniel. I know Doug had wanted hole cards, but might give Doug too much of an advantage, so Negreanu nixed that idea. So here we are. So we're doing the best we can with hole cards down.
Yeah, it was actually a bit of a, I believe this is a float bet from Daniel on the right table, betting when check 2 in a 3-bet pot on ace king 3. He bets small and takes it down. Yeah, it was sort of a, it would have been quite a concession for Daniel to show cards the entire match, and what they ended up deciding to do is what a lot of you guys heard about, is they played 200 hands live in the Poker Go studio. That was kind of the middle ground. I know doesn't feel like much of a middle ground right now when we had 200 face up, and now we have 12,300 hands at least face down, but this is a really high stakes match. Like, this could be millions of dollars being exchanged back and forth when this thing is all said and done, so you can't really blame the players for not wanting to show hole cards, and yeah, we're just going to have to kind of work with what we've got.
Dave says ruined it for all of us by calling it hold cards, because there's no one who ever talks about hold cards without now talking about his joke.
I've noticed that comes up a lot. It looks like we have a lead out of Daniel here on the ace king 3 king in a single raise pot. He goes for the 5th pot lead. Yeah, Doug c-bet here. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. He does put in a raise, decent sized. Looks to be about 75% pot. What does D-Negs want to do versus that? We get a call in a pretty interesting 4th club on the river. 3-bet.
Who would you expect that to favor?
Whose range would I expect it to favor? That's a good question. I would think Doug. That's pretty. I would say it's pretty close. I mean, I'm not positive. One of them definitely has the advantage. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which. Intuitively, I kind of thought Daniel, as the lead and caller, he's going to have some like 1 club hands that he called with, whereas Doug might just flat those versus the bet. But they're both going to have high clubs there, so it's not. I don't think it's going to be a huge spot in terms of advantages for the flushes. But Doug will also have like the boats and the really really strong hands on an ace king board. 2 single raise pots here with Doug on the button. Get the check back on the jack 4-3 and the c-bet on the king jack 2 spades.
Chat is clamoring for Joey. Everyone misses Joey right now. He'll be back.
He will be back. Looked like I missed it, but it looked like it was probably a check raise on the left there with Negreanu on the versus Doug's delayed c-bet on the turn. Doug with a 3-bet and take it on the right table. Oh, it was actually my mistake. It was an overbet from Daniel. Overbet pro. My mistake there.
No problem. It's fast. The action's pretty fast, and trying to read chat too. It is definitely a more challenging type of commentary.
Definitely, but at least there's always something to talk about, like that 4-bet on the right getting through from Doug, and a probe getting through from Doug on the 10-5-3 ace 3 hearts board. Players are about even now in this session so far, early on. For those of you who don't know, the players have agreed to play 4 times per week as Doug 3-bets on the right. They've agreed to play 4 times per week, 2 hours minimum each session. Kind of seems like they're going to play that 2 hours minimum basically every time. They do have the option to extend if both players agree, but they called it right after 2 hours on the Friday session. I expect most sessions will go just like that, but you never know. Maybe sometimes both of them will be feeling saucy and they'll decide to play a little bit more.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be over after 2 hours. I think if someone's getting completely smashed, it's very likely to end at 2 hours.
Yeah, definitely. 3-bet pot goes check on the flop on jack 7-9 on the right. We get the queen turn, and D-Negs puts in the bet. Definitely a very good board for D-Negs range as the 3-bet caller. See what Doug decides to do. Doug certainly not deficient in medium and strong hands either. It's definitely not a bad board for his range, but it definitely hits Daniel's. Doug with a quick check on the 4 diamonds river. See what Daniel decides to do in this 20K pot. Quickly bet 75% for 15K. Biggest pot of the day so far, I believe. Let's see what Doug decides to do. Ooh, we have the raise all in. That is not a huge raise in relation to the first bet. This is going to be really interesting. Let's see what Daniel decides to do here. No snap, so you have to imagine. Could be a tough spot for Daniel with a hand like a queen, or could even be betting. I don't see a jack in it playing this way too often, but he could have that. Be very interesting to see what Doug has if this hand goes to showdown, and it does. Doug with the bluff, Daniel with the 2 pair. good call from Daniel. Definitely not a hand you can really fold versus a player as aggressive as Doug Polk, but maybe he was thinking that raise was so small, it was only a 2.5x raise over the river bet. So yeah, maybe he was thinking Doug's just not going to be bluffing often like that, but it's Doug Polk, and he was.
Doug using that 10 as a blocker there to just go for it. It definitely looks scary as Daniel when you're facing only, what was it, less than 20K more to call. You expect that Doug wants to be called there.
Yeah, well played hand from Daniel there. I think probably well played hand all around. It's probably going to bring Daniel into about a 35 to 40K lead on the day today. Doug going with the probe on Queen 8 6 5. I don't know why I use terms when I'm just going to explain them right after, but a probe is when you bet the turn after or the river after the aggressor checked back on the previous street. I'm just going to start saying things in normal words, or at least I'm going to try. But the poker terms might just kind of come out of my mouth like involuntary vomit, but we'll see. Daniel does call and they get the Barry Green sign on the river. Doug checks over to him. This is a card that definitely hits Daniel a little bit harder. So Doug should be checking a lot, and they both kind of have a bit of showdown value, so they both decide to take it. And D-Negs wins the pot with a small pair. Doug c-bets the ace-9-6 board for a third of the pot, 600 into 1800. Gets the call. Get a very dynamic turn, adding a second flush draw. Ace-9-6-3, 2 hearts, 2 clubs. D-Neg's unlikely to lead this card, and he does check. D-Neg's going again on the dry board on the right, going with his 1/5 pot-sized minimum c-bet. Doug calls. We get the backdoor flush completing on the left table. See if D-Negs decides to put in the river bet. He doesn't.
So anybody who's good at Twitch, some of the hands that are like the biggest hands that people come in and ask, oh, how is Doug behind so much right now? If anyone wants to clip hands and just add them to the chat, that'd be really sweet.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. For those who don't know, though, the big hand was 10-9 for Doug, Queen-9 for Negreanu on a Queen-9, not in this order, but it was Queen-9, Jack-7X. So Doug had the pair in the straight draw or in the straight blocker. Daniel had 2 pair. It was a 3-bet pot. Daniel bet the river for 15K. Doug shoved for 35K as a bluff, and Daniel picked him off. So that's how Daniel got out to this quick 40K lead. Speaking of Twitch and YouTube chat, Daniel already out to like about 40K lead again. So who do you guys think is going to win? Let's get a 1 in the chat for Doug and a 2 in the chat for Daniel, considering that Daniel is already out to a 1 buy-in lead.
Steve Schwinn says he could clip chunks of his mixtape if anyone wants to hear some fire. Awesome, that would be great. We don't have anything else to focus on. Lots of ones in the chat. I think it's about 90% ones. I wonder if they ask this in the GG chat, what will they say?
That would be interesting to do a some sort of study on how the biases show in the chats. We got classic YouTube. I'm checking YouTube, and we got a lot of 4s and 3s on YouTube. So really, really smart guys over there on YouTube. Clever stuff. Looks like we have a 3-bet pot on the left. King 7-2-2 hearts. Doug puts in the small c-bet, gets the flush completing turn. Doug pots the turn. I believe that's a double. Based on pot size, it has to be a double barrel. So Doug betting the turn after betting the flop. Gets the king river. Doug double barrels on the king 7-2-3 and gets the fold as the flush completes. See what Doug decides to do on this king of diamonds river. Single raise pot on the right. Puts in a decent-sized bet for 6K into 9. Daniel quickly calls. Doug has the birds, as I call them, but most people call them aces.
I like the old-timey, all the little American Airlines, the weapons of mass destruction. The
Good
worst
stuff.
one.
Got the 4-bet from D-Negs on the left. Call from Doug's playing a 4-bet pot. We get the 10-10-5 board. In general, this is going to just be better for Doug. Probably does have more 10s, but in general, D-Neg's range is just going to be a lot stronger here as the 4-better, so he's going to be able to leverage that advantage and bet small as he does 4,000 into 20,000. You tend to pretty much in every 4-bet pot bet small like that, so there's only a handful of boards, I believe, that you actually really change that size.
What would they be? The middle connected boards?
I would imagine. I would imagine so. Yeah, ones that just kind of smash hands that only the 3-bet or the 4-bet caller can have a lot more. Mm-hmm. Now it looks like Daniel going for the bet on the very small bet on the turn. He had about a pot size bet behind, and he went for the small bet, which certainly fine in a 4-bet pot with how big of an advantage he has. Doug does call. Daniel has half the pot left in his stack in the river in this 40K pot, and he checks back and wins with ace king high.
Wow.
Definitely a well-played hand on both parts. I don't think Doug can really do anything else versus that. Bet size with ace queen, Daniel making some pretty good sort of hybrid protection value bets with his ace king, kind of just leveraging how good his range is there. I believe we saw a check raise on the right. I'm not positive how the pot got to this size. I believe he check raised. Don't grain of salt though, because I might have missed that. Some of you probably know.
The only problem though is that you can never really trust the chat if they tell you.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. I just know some of them have the actual knowledge in their brain. Daniel overbets this river about 150% pot. And gets the fold.
I think that's the major difference from when I first started playing poker a decade or so ago till now, is that overbetting is just the coolest thing now. Everyone's finding every spot to do it.
No, it's so hot right now. It's been so hot for like 3 years. Yeah. In the Upswing Lab, we put out 2 modules on overbetting in the last 3 months alone. So yeah, very hot topic. People want to hear about overbetting. They want to bet more than the pot. It makes them feel cool, and it makes them cool. That's just a fact. Doug getting the bet through on ace 4 or ace 4 on the right table.
Uh-oh, I forgot to lock the dogs out of this room, so I might have to have to get up in a minute.
Yeah, take a quick break, no problem.
Sorry.
Dog mom life. We've got Doug c-betting a little bit larger on the Jack 8-6 board in this 3-bet pot, about 40%, I believe. D-Negs calls, and we get the 9 of hearts turn. Very dynamic board here. He does check over to D-Negs. D-Negs has a decent amount more flushes in his range on that turn, but he does check back. We get the 3 of hearts on the river. 4 hearts now.
Yes, chat. I said I need to let the ducks out.
Doug scoops that with middle pair. Not too bad of a pot considering 4 hearts. check on the right table. Let's see what Dnegs decides to do on this flush completing turn after Doug check back. Small c-bet from Doug on the left table. Dnegs does bet the turn. Call on the left table from Doug. Get the double paired board now. Or rather, call from Dnegs. Apologies. Small lead here from Daniel on the left table. Interesting to see. Doug did c-bet the flop. So this is a quote-unquote donk bet from Daniel. Doug wins with a 10 on the right table, flop middle pair. Called the turn probe. Daniel probed the turn with bottom pair. See what Daniel decides to do on this river.
Hope this hand goes to showdown because he's had a lot of these 20% pot bets, and I'm always interested in seeing what they are because it's so unusual. And I feel like we haven't got to see them showdown very often.
Yeah, surprisingly, because when you bet small, you kind of expect to see showdown more. But then Doug's been raising more, as he should. So, yeah, Daniel's been employing these small bets in a lot of different spots. He's using them as the c-better. He's using them after checking back the flop, and when he delay c-bets the turn, he's using them as a probe sometimes. He's using them a lot in 4-bet pots, which that's definitely a very standard spot to do it. The little other spots are like a little bit less standard sometimes, but overall, he just really seems to be a fan of those small bets. I would be very interested to see like what sorts of board textures he decides to use a larger bet, or things like that. Here we see that small bet again on Jack 10, 3-2 clubs. Doug does call. We get the board pairing turn. Quick check from Doug. It is a card I think he could consider leading with some of his range, but he does decide to just check. Checked fast too, so I'm not sure he's leading at all. But maybe his brain works that fast. I don't know. Certainly faster than mine. Doug with the new open size 950. It could be because they're a bit deeper, so that could actually be a stack size adjustment. We saw him go from 910 to 930 last night at one point, and it looks like they're 150 blinds deep now, and now he's going 950. So very small increase, about a tenth of a blind of an increase since the start of the day, but interesting to see nonetheless. Doug check calls the double barrel on the board pairing turn on the left, and we get the flush completer on the river. Doug's going to win this one with queen high, surprisingly. Wow. Got the 3-bet from Doug.
Ryan Meese, we need to be able to say back up the truck in all caps. I agree. I think the, what is it called, Modbot or something, is a little bit too sensitive.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Interestingly, Doug using quite a bit smaller of a 3-bet size in this match compared to Negreanu. So Negreanu's facing a $910 open. Well, I'm going to pause for a second because we have a 4-bet pot here. Doug 4-bets. On the right, he's c-betting small on ace 9-3. Call of the 4-bet. So we get the king 8 flop. 21K in the pot. Doug's got 33K behind. Dnegs is going to check here every time, and now it's up to Doug to decide what to do. We expect to see a small bet here from Doug pretty much all of the time. Very good board for him. And he does go small. Looks like about a fifth of the pot. Gets the quick fold. Yeah, so anyway, it's interesting to see the comparison in 3-bet sizes because you have Dnegs opening to 1,000, and then I saw Doug 3-bet on the right table to 3,700 or 3,700 and change a couple hands ago. It's 3,700, and then you have Doug opening to 900 and change, and Daniel's making it 4,100. So Daniel's facing a smaller open size, but he's actually using a larger 3-bet size. You would think it would go, it would scale with the size of the open. So it's interesting to see that. That's just differences in their strategy, how they're approaching heads up in general. Trips on the board on the right table now. Doug gets the c-bet through on the left.
Queen high is just the nuts today.
All right, I'm gonna take a big chance here and ask the chat, how much do you think Doug is up? Or rather, Doug is down right now. Because our graphic needs to be updated. and I'm expecting many of you to lie, but I have a rough estimation. But I'm curious to see what you guys say.
$16 Bitcoin. That's the winner. And Johnny Money is asking on YouTube, did players sell equity? We don't really have that information. I think both of these guys are pretty well funded. I don't think either of them would have sold a big piece. So it's actually a really unique kind of heads up match, because I think when the stakes are this high, most people do have a lot of their actions sold to other people. I would be surprised if that was the case here.
Definitely. Another. Oh, you know what? I just spaced on what I was going to say. Second time doing commentary, and it is apparent.
You're doing a great job. I think chat is hovering. If I had to take a quick average of about 10,000 numbers that just rolled past the screen, I would say they're averaging like 40 or 50K as a guess.
Well, yeah, but I bet they're pretty biased by just looking at the screen and seeing the number that we have, which we know is a little bit outdated, so not super helpful.
We had just a 2.5x 4-bet and then a call by Doug on the left table. Just another 20%-ish sizing, 20. I don't know. That's I thought this was a board that would be a little bit of a heavier size, just because it is a little bit more connected than the one earlier. But I feel like I've only seen Daniel use the 20% size today.
Jack 7-3, it's still pretty dry for a 4-bet pot, I would say. Like, it's not quite enough of dynamism, if that's a word, to kind of warrant using a larger size.
Yeah, if that 7's like a 9 or a 10, you would expect it to be a bigger sizing mixed in there.
Doug check jams the turn. He is relentless indeed. See what Daniel decides to do in this pretty large pot. We're going to see a roughly 115K pot if he gets called here. But Doug's going to drag 75K. It's going to bring them much closer to even on the day. I believe Doug's down about 20, maybe 15K right now.
So in his post-match interview, Daniel did one. It was pretty hilarious if you guys wanted to look it up, where he's getting very angry at tech issues. But he had mentioned that, now I'm losing my train of thought. He had mentioned that he was going to go over the hands with his team on the weekend. And I was wondering, Brady, how much adjusting do you think they're going to do? He's been studying for a month in a certain way. Do you really think they're going to make major adjustments? Did Doug throw any major curveballs that he's going to have to adjust to?
I don't expect them to do much adjusting based on how Doug played in the match. That they have just such little data to really make those adjustments. I mean, they saw maybe they played about 400 hands on Friday. I would say they probably saw about 50 showdowns, like not much more than that. So maybe a bit more than that, but it's just really not that much info to go off of. A lot of those are going to be insanely standard, so you're not going to learn anything from those. So they really don't have too much info to adjust based on Doug's play, though perhaps some. What I think more of it is going to be is Daniel's just pretty new to heads up in general. So he's still going to be pretty early in like sort of building his whole game. So I could see decent sized things sort of being discovered by his team, being like, hey, you played this hand a little bit wrong, or maybe you played this hand a little bit differently how we wanted you to do it. So I think it's more correcting what his team probably initially wanted him to do, maybe, than actual adjusting based on Doug's play. And then perhaps a little bit of adjusting based on Doug's play peppered in there as well.
Liam Regan actually paid €1.99 to ask, is more rig better? So I have to read that. No choice.
I can confirm it is. Although this match does have no rake, which a lot of people have speculated favors Daniel, because Doug has long said more rake is better. It'll be interesting to see how that factor impacts the match. We have two single raise pots here. Daniel c-betting the left now, not using his small size. He's going for 3/4 pot on this board. Something we were talking about earlier is when he's going to use that larger size, and this is a board he's apparently going to do it, the 10-8-2. Doug still puts in the check raise, relentless as always, making it 4,800. Check down pot on the right as the flush completes. Daniel does peel, and we get the king of clubs on the turn, adding a flush draw. Doug slows down now, and Daniel wins on the right with a pair of aces. That's top pair. No bets went in on that one. We get the flush completing river, backdoor flush. Will Doug decide to put in a bet now after check raising the flop? Let's see what happens. He does check. Daniel wins it with an 8. Nice hand, Daniel.
So I may as well plug the course I was watching yesterday. You know the guy's name, right? The heads up course on Upswing that you just recommended to me.
Heads up module in the Upswing Lab. Yeah, his name is Daniel McCauley. Some of you might know him as Doogie Dan 678 on PokerStars. He's an absolute heads up boss, and he made a module in the Upswing Lab called Heads Up 101. Basically, just covers pre-flop, has the pre-flop charts. You know, there aren't many pre-flop charts needed. Basically, the open. And then the 3-bet, and then burst 3-bet, and then just how to play the flop on a bunch of different flop textures. And yeah, Jamie, you were checking it out yesterday. What do you think?
I got through.
Hashtag ad. Hashtag ad.
Hashtag ad, yeah. I watched 2 modules yesterday, and they're good. I really like his voice, too. I think that sometimes gets me when, you have someone very bright, but their voice is grating. He's got a very pleasant voice, and he takes it, like, not very fast, so I feel like it was good, even for someone who doesn't have a ton of experience in heads up. I found it very useful.
Nice, for sure. Daniel scoops the pot on the right with a straight. Another thing about Daniel McCauley is not only does he have that soothing UK voice, just so soft-spoken, so nice to listen to, he makes that amazing heads-up content. He's a top heads-up player. He's also a pretty beastly online MTTer. I mean, he had a Micro Millions win, a $22 buy-in tournament that paid $100K for first, that he peeled the whole thing. That's 5,000 buy-ins. Don't have to break out your calculator. And then he also just, I believe he won or maybe just ran deep in an online WPT event that was like a 5K or a 2,500 or something like that. So that was kind of interesting to see the dichotomy, because he crushed the small field, and then he also, or the large field, small buy-in, also did well in the large buy-in, smaller field, presumably. So yeah, really happy to have Daniel McCauley on the team. Love that guy.
It's hard to crush even one niche of poker, and he's doing 2. It's awesome.
For sure. When I played more myself, I always found it difficult to, if you're playing, like, for example, MTTs and heads up, it's going to be hard to not play too loose in the MTTs because you're playing too much heads up, or play too tight in the heads up because you're playing MTTs. It's just kind of hard for the wires not to get crossed. So yeah, it's just really impressive. Looks like we have I assume this is a 3-bet pot on the right. Sorry, I did miss the action. It might have been a check raise, but Daniel's betting the turn on Queen 10-2-2. Doug calls. I'm going to assume it was a 3-bet pot in which Daniel bet small on the flop, and now he's betting small on the turn. Let's see what he decides to do on this king river. He checks. Will Doug put in a bet on this river? Pretty scary board run, and he does not bet top pair for value. He takes the showdown and wins. Daniel with a hand that very well might have called. Yeah, that was a well-played hand from Daniel. Betting twice with Queen Jack on Queen 10-2 too. Well played, in the no other option really but to check that river. And then lucky for
just
Daniel, he did.
The dogs literally battered down the door to get back in. Chris had to lure them out the treats again. They really want to watch this match.
Of course, who doesn't? We have the overbet double barrel on the turn from Doug on the left table on a very dynamic board, and it gets through. Daniel back to his small sizing on Queen 9-5, 2 clubs. So it looks like maybe on, this is just a hypothesis, but maybe on the higher boards and more dry boards, Daniel's using that smaller size, and then maybe on the more middling boards, he's deciding to use that 3/4 size. We saw him use the 3/4 size as a c-bet on 10-8-3 or something along those lines, Rainbow. And then this board, it's fairly dynamic, but it's like a little bit higher. It has a queen on it, so maybe a little bit better for Daniel. He decides to go small. Just speculating as to what he's thinking, not necessarily what's correct. Doug's going to take this one with king high. Got shot on the flop.
People in chat are tilted with the split cam. The moving it back and forth, so maybe for next time we'll change that. Look, guys, we got them both on the right side of the table, all right? Baby steps.
Indeed. Overbet probe on the Jack 10-7-3 board on the left. Doug gets it through. We really appreciate your feedback, guys. A lot of the times you don't ask or say it in the nicest way, but we do appreciate hearing how you guys think we can improve the stream, and we're going to take your ideas into consideration, and the ones that are actually good, which is actually more than I expected, we're going to implement those. So yeah, we really appreciate you guys' feedback. I'm not even going to ask you to ask it nicer. Just keep being you. Never change Twitch chat. Never change YouTube chat. You guys are the best.
Yeah, I agree. We need Ryan Fee in the booth at some point, because I feel like we'll sugarcoat things, we think. I don't think Ryan Fee would sugarcoat anything.
No, he would not. He actually, let me read a message from Ryan Fee. He just said, God, I have to get in the booth. I have so much fire commentary to spit. Fire commentary to spit. So get ready for that, everyone. He's definitely going to be on here at some point. And if you guys have anyone else you want to see commentate, we've had a lot of people reach out since the first stream saying like, hey, I would love to hop in the booth or whatever, including Dan Murr, Daniel Maralise, Jason Mack. They're good friends from the UK, both great heads-up players. They would like to do it together. We got a showdown on the right, Doug betting with top pair on the river, and it gets through, or rather it gets called.
That's really awesome that Maralise wants to hop in, because I know people are very stingy with their heads-up knowledge, because it's a game where like every time you tell someone any tricks that you're costing yourself money down the road. So that's actually really awesome that he's willing to get in the booth.
Yeah, for sure. And Jason Mack's a great player too, like really, really great player. Both of those guys also lab coaches. Really love having them. Who else wanted to hop in? Marty Mathis, the Lipo Fund on Stars,
He's
great tournament player. Oh yeah, I can't wait to have him in. I'm sure he's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, over the course of the last few months, he's been trying to build up a tolerance to the like spiciest peppers. That's what he's been working on in quarantine.
That's amazing. A lot of people made bread, but he's grinding peppers. Good stuff. C-bet from DNeggs on Ace Jack 8. So yeah, anyway, if you guys have anyone you want to see commentate, if you want to commentate, either DM or rather tweet at Upswing, maybe tweet at the person you want to see commentate, ask them to reach out to us to commentate, like blow them up. Like let's get them on the stream. We would love to have whoever. There's going to be so freaking many of these things. To the point that we're probably even going to have to just like play music on some of them, because like we can't just always have commentators necessarily. Which, by the way, I'm curious on that. What are your guys' thoughts, the chat, on doing these streams? Like, say it's just like a random Wednesday, this stream is live, with just like some chill hop music playing in the background. You could listen to the music or not, just mute it. We've kind of been considering doing that sometimes because it's just a little easier to operate, and there's gonna be so many of these. Excited to see what you guys say as we have a large bet from Daniel on the river on the left. He does get called, and he shows Doug a very strong hand, top 2.
I saw somebody suggest JMO. I would love to have JMO in the booth. However, we're trying not to get banned from Twitch. I feel like JMO would be really fun. However, I don't know. I feel like he could. He's gonna tell us how he really feels. You know.
He will.
I'm still a little salty towards JMO because he said if Bitcoin hit a certain price that he was gonna level the Rio and make it a parking lot. And I think it was either 10 or 15K, which it had reached. And the Rio still stands, and we might have another WSOP there. So nightmare.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's already back at 15K, so regardless, he should be leveling the Rio right now, or at least taking steps towards it. Daniel winning a nice sized pot on the right.
Baseboy4, will the music patiently explain to me why they aren't showing hole cards on the stream? I do feel that's like 25% of what we say every time.
Yeah. Just to catch everyone up on that, Doug would have loved to show hole cards this whole match. I know for a fact he would have agreed if both players agreed. Daniel preferred to not do that. The sort of compromise was to play 200 hands live with hole cards. That's how the session, how the whole thing began at Poker Go. It was also like a good situation for marketing, just to kind of get the match out there. But additionally, that was sort of a concession to make sure some hands were shown. And Doug gets this value bet through on the left with ace 10. Another thing I want to say about this stream, repeating myself from last night, so some of you might have heard this already, but interestingly, WSOP.com tables, the site that these guys are playing on, they're not viewable from any state or country for that matter, but state in the US that is not a legal US state that has WSOP.com regulated. So basically 99+% of the world, unless you're in one of 3 very specific states, maybe 4, can't watch this, can't even open the tables. You could click the lobby and see what the stacks are. It's not very exciting though. So we wanted to make sure that this stuff is at least being shown somewhere. That was basically the idea for this stream. So we're going to be showing all the matches, these same channels. We might actually move it over to Doug's Twitch at some point, but we'll still host it from Upswing's Twitch, so it's the same thing. And, you know, just every time they sit, we're going to go live with this stream. Commentators or not, I heard we kind of got some mixed reviews from that idea. And again, we have so many people interested in commentary. We might have commentators for all of them. But yeah, the whole idea is just to make sure everyone can watch this stream. And this is actually kind of for myself too. I mean, I live in California, so I can't watch these tables, and I very much want to. So I'm really happy that the stream is going for even just myself, let alone for you guys. Doug 3-bet on the right and gets called. We get the 8-8-2-2 hearts. Going to be a high frequency c-bet spot for Doug on a paired board that neither player has a ton of the card that's paired. Daniel calls. Daniel does likely have a small advantage in 8s though.
Sorry, Gutre. I said, don't forget Delaware. We're a real state that exists, and we have WSOP. Our bad.
Doug with a large bet on the turn. Daniel does call, or Daniel folds, gets through. Joe Franco in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. Doug wins showdown with ace high on the left.
Was that Wayne's World where he's like, great, we're in Delaware? For anyone in the chat who's old like me.
I've not seen Wade's World.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You gotta go do it right now.
Sorry. Sixth Wilbury asked said this chat needs FAQs. I 100% agree. We're actually going to put together a challenge FAQ this week. So many questions we've been asked multiple times, like why are they playing on WSOP? Because they wanted to play on a regulated site. Particularly Doug wanted that. Unsurprisingly, Daniel wanted to play on GG, but they both want to be in the comfort of their own homes in Nevada, Vegas specifically, and you could play illegally on WSOP.com doing that. Daniel also suggested playing play money on GG, so they could stay in Nevada, but that idea just did not gel with Doug, and he wanted to make sure this was a dollar sign next to all the chips, so that's what's happening. Got the 2x pot bet from Daniel on the left here on the King of Spades turn. Doug does call. Love to see when those overbets get called. Let's see what happens here. Interesting spot. 25K in the middle. Daniel's got 38K left. Could see him jam the whole thing in here. Nope, goes to showdown, and smart check from Daniel, because Doug does have the ace-4 for river trips. Would be interesting to see what Daniel had there. Unfortunately, we cannot. If chat wants to speculate, though, what do you guys think he had? It was 4-3-2 king. Daniel double pot overbets the turn. River 4, he checks back. Maybe has some showdown value. Maybe he's waving the white flag with a bluff. I don't know. Depends what you guys think. That's whatever you guys think, that's the truth. So drop it in chat.
I'm a little confused too with the rules on WSB.com. I grind this site, but if it goes check on the river, they just expose the winning hand. But if it goes bet call on the river, they showed both hands last time. Daniel was a little upset that his the 9-7 hand on the 8-8-5-8 got exposed. He thought it would not. So I guess if it's bet and call on river, they show both no matter what.
Yeah, maybe. That is a very WSOP-like rule. Like, that sounds like something that would be in, like, a WSOP tournament, so maybe they just decided to, like, carry it over. I don't know. They use the same software, or at least, like, it's a skin of the 888 Poker software, so I'm curious, does anyone know in the chat if 888 Poker does that? Do they have showdowns? If it goes bet call on the river, both players automatically show? Pretty interested in that. Bassboy4 asked, what odds would you give Doug on unretiring from poker in the next 5 years? That's a really good question. It really depends what you mean by unretiring. If this counts as unretired, like playing matches that randomly come up, maybe even more informal ones, like someone just hitting him up and saying, hey, do you want to play? I would actually give it, I'd say it's somewhat likely that he is technically unretired in 5 years. And by somewhat likely, I mean it's probably like 20%, so what would that be, plus 400? Plus 500?
Well, what's funny with this is that we all worked on his YouTube channel, so we know Doug pretty well. If this was 2 years ago, or about, I'd say a year ago, and you said, what's the chance of Doug unretiring? I would have lost my life savings betting he would not.
For sure. And then here he is now jamming the river over a Daniel bet. Not retired by any means. He is jamming the river here on King 7-4 Jack, 3 spades, and then the Queen on the river. Judging by the size of the pot, I'm gonna guess this was 3-bet by Daniel, C-bet the flop. But I'm not positive about that. And then Daniel would now be betting the river for a small size, and Doug does get the jam through. Doug was down, I would say, he might have been down at his worst, like 40 or 50K in this match, and he's pulled closer to even. He might even be in a small lead right now. One other good one for the FAQ. People have been kind of requesting like that we update that thing that over here a little bit more often, and then or like adding some sort of like fancy graph that actually tracks it in real time. Unfortunately, again, WSOP.com, they don't have hand histories or anything of that nature, so there's no real way for us to track what's going on. The only real way to do it is that's feasible is to have someone manually tracking it, just trying to get it close. So that's an approximation you're seeing over there, but it's better than nothing. And then as soon as the dust settles on each match and they sign off, Doug usually tweets out or he messages us like what the actual total for the session was, and he's tracking that exactly. And then we are going to be updating the page upswingpoker.com/HU for Grudge, bottom left of your screen. If you look there, that has the link. So you can go there to see the graph, quick recaps of the challenges, which is like a sentence of what happened. And we'll also have some other things there soon too. I'm assuming that's where we'll put the FAQ. The challenge rules are there, things like that. So if you want to check anything out about the challenge, go check out that page. Daniel winning with an ace here on the ace king king XX board.
One other tilting thing about WSOP is their 4-color deck is just random colors. Have you noticed that? Because if you haven't yet, it's going to piss you off now.
Yeah, we do here, and here's that 10-8-2 board with a green spade 8. D-Neg's betting 3/4 pot. That's that larger size that we saw him use also on a 10-8-2 board last time. So we didn't really learn anything there about when he's using the larger size, but we would expect him to use it there, and he does. We get the queen turn. Doug C betting on the left on Jack 9-4. Overbet on the turn from Daniel on this straight completing dynamic card, and it gets through. Doug C bet on the flop got called on the left. So we were just kind of making fun of WSOP a bit, but I do have to say we're really thankful for WSOP for this challenge. They really stepped up. They didn't even have heads-up tables going into this, and they added them at Doug and Daniel's request, and they were both of those guys were practicing on the tables for the last couple months or a month or so, and then they added 200, 400 heads-up tables. I don't think they had anything above like. Did they have anything above even like 2550 on WSOP, Jamie?
I don't think so. It's not like I was really looking for that action, Not really in the 2550 streets heads up. But no, I'm sure that they added the extra high limit for these guys. But I think 2550 might have been the highest heads up tables.
Yeah, so that's, hats off to them. We really appreciate it.
We're still going to pick on them, though. I mean, Twitch chat
100%.
picks on us. We pick on WSOP. It's just the circle of life.
They're also not paying us like a dime, so I mean, we get to make fun of the things we don't like. Maybe they'll change them. Who knows? Check raise on the right, and then bet the turn from Daniel, and it gets through on 9-2-2-2 clubs, turn 3 of hearts.
So Chad doesn't understand. So the 4-color deck on every other any other skin you use will have the same colors. Like the clubs will be green. They just made the clubs black and the spades green. The hearts are usually red. It's just and the diamonds are blue. So it's like exactly. If you put in a lot of volume on another site, this just scrambles your brain when you come to this one.
Yeah, it sort of doesn't matter because it's just like colors, so you could just think of it like the 8 of blue or whatever. It doesn't actually change the play, but it is just like really weird to see like a blue heart and a green spade. It's like literally the only site that I've ever heard of that does that on the 4-color decks. Oh, you know what? I just opened the stream. I know why the chat's confused. On the stream, it's King 6-3, 2 clubs, and the clubs are green, and the diamond is blue.
Oh, they're using a different deck.
They're using a different deck.
That's even crazier then. So if we use the other deck, they're the right colors? Oh my god.
Right, exactly. So you can change the deck and we have it normal. Yeah, sorry guys, we're not looking at the stream to commentate on the hands, and we just have a different deck going. So that's what that is. But in any case, they do have a 4-color deck that's the wrong colors.
I just always default to, okay, chat's just messing with us because it's fun. And they were just telling the truth this time. Very balanced of you guys.
Yeah, good stuff. Really good stuff, guys. They're super savvy today. Just really quick, our man manning this chat or manning this stream, can you switch the deck to the wrong deck really quick, the one with the wrong 4-color? You got to show the chat.
Make this worse for us?
Make it worse for just very briefly, because they need to see this nonsense.
What's told us who's commentating? Jamie, this is Mike Brady. Mike Brady is a VP of Upswing, a poker player himself, and dipping his toe into the commentary pool, and I think he's doing a great job.
Thanks, Jamie.
I just said that, so Chad's going to be like, no, he's not.
That's fine. That's fine. Any feedback would be great. Yeah, the stream is sort of in a way my baby. Like as soon as Doug wanted to do this challenge, and I knew no one around the world could watch this match, I wanted to make sure it happened. So I was kind of the one who spearheaded the effort to get this going. So kind of wanted to hop in the booth for my first commentary experience. I did a little bit on Friday, but I'm back today. As we see Daniel overbetting this river on the 7-6-2-2 hearts board, and then he gets the running 8s and overbets. Let's see what Doug decides to do here. Doug can definitely have some very strong hands in this spot. I believe it was a, or no, you know what? I'm wrong because it was a 3-bet pot that checked down, I assume. Sorry, I didn't see the action, so I'm not sure what Doug can have. But in any case, he's facing 1.5 pot size bet. And let's see what he decides to do. He folds. Daniel using his small 1/5 pot minimum size on 10-5-4 3 clubs.
Looks like they're going to go on a minute or two break.
For the love of God, switch it back, someone says. Oh man, they were freaking out when it switched. That's so funny. Oh man. I love you guys so much.
And you guys tolerate us. Thanks.
Yeah, I know like at least half the people watching this probably have it muted. They're listening to music or they're doing their own thing, maybe grinding or whatever. And then the other half are maybe like listening, maybe like half of those are passively listening. For those of you actively listening, we really appreciate you guys. Really good suggestion from I Am Grootson. Every time a player reloads, can we have a portrait pic of Gus Hansen appear on the screen? That's really good.
You know, funny story with that. I read Gus Hansen's book when I was somewhat new to tournament poker, and I just like, it was mind blowing to me. I'm like, wait a second, nobody ever has anything. You could just always bet. So I was just c-betting 100% for a little while, not realizing that he just ran super good that tournament, and every time he bet, his opponent had nothing.
Amazing.
Every hand revealed. Just turns out his opponent's bricked every flop.
Dougie P. Playing heads up in 2020. I really would have never expected it.
I know. I'm
So
glad we
weird
didn't
to be
bet
here.
on this.
You're glad what? Sorry?
That we didn't bet on that. I would have lost all my money. He was
Yeah,
just
for
so
sure.
over poker for a while.
Yeah, couldn't be much more over it. But he's back and playing a 3-bet pot here on the left on 10-8-2 versus Daniel. Also, large pot going on the right where we get a very interesting turn. Ace 7-3 all hearts, then the ace turn. See what Daniel decides to do. I believe Daniel c-bet on the flop in a 3-bet pot. Goes for the large size Doug quick fold. Daniel with a lot of aces, particularly the strong ones there. More often than Doug will have them, assuming that was 3-bet pot, indeed a 3-bet pot. So good large size choice from him. Can maybe even go bigger. Doug now delays c-betting in this 3-bet pot on the left. He's going for pot sized. 8,200 and 8,200 gets through. Jamie, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. What's your prediction for if, assuming this challenge ends at 12,500 hands, right? Well, actually, no. Choose your own adventure. It could either end at 12,500 or 25,000. How will this match end? How many hands will they play, and who will be up how much? This will be your official prediction that people will be able to tweet at you when you're wrong.
Okay. All right, so I'll compliment D-Negs because I thought he was going to be drawing kind of dead, but some of the hands we thought weren't great actually turned out to be fine last time. So I feel like that really helps his chances of actually finishing all 25K. I don't think it's going to be like a ridiculous blowout where he just bows out. So I think they'll go all 25K, and I think Doug will end up $550,000.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm gonna go with 12,500 hands. Doug wins 912K.
Whoa.
I work for the guy, so I mean.
Well, I'm rooting for Doug. I'm trying to not let that like cloud my mind when it comes to what I really think is going to happen. I may have overcorrected though.
Oh yeah, I'm almost certain it clouded my mind.
What does chat think? I want some, oh, is Norman Chad ESPN in the chat? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, let's get
Big
to all. We have a 3-bet pot on the left here, where Doug 3-bet and then bet on the flop. Daniel called. Doug using his standard, like pretty small bet, like fifth, or did I say Doug? Doug using a small bet, about fourth pot. DNeg's now betting when checked to on this turn, very small. This is a common thing you see in heads up, where, or kind of in 3-bet pots in general, when the 3-better c-bets on the flop and then checks the turn, the in-position player will often do a lot of small betting on the turn. This is one of those spots that's definitely going to happen. Ooh, Doug rivers the ace there to win the pot. Almost certainly was behind if Daniel's checking the river. You would not think Daniel checks the hand without showdown value, so he likely had a pair that got wrecked by that berry on the river.
Yep. One thing I wanted to say in case chat didn't know was that Bill Perkins made some kind of side bet with DNegs, giving him 10-1. I think it was predicated on him finishing all 25K hands. I'm not sure the exact terms, but I know that Perkins is like, I don't like this buyout deal. Like, I want to incentivize him actually going the whole way. So that could be interesting. I'm hoping it goes 25K hands. This is pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it goes 25K hands, like we're going into like February, probably, maybe early February. Like, I mean, they'd be aiming for January 31st, they said.
Hey, Doug and Daniel are going to end up saving lives because right now people would be out maskless, just running naked through the streets, giving each other COVID. Instead, they're sitting at home watching this.
Yeah, Bill Perkins definitely did Doug a big favor with that side bet.
Yeah.
What were you
Jake
just giggling at?
Perkins is a madman, Jake Simmons says. He is, but he always has these like whatever, what's the opposite of nefarious? All of his like little, plans are always like trying to help other people's lives. Benevolent, I guess. He has, he's trying to incentivize people to do cool shit with their lives. Lose weight, go on trips. Like there's just always something good he's trying to do. And for this, he's just trying to create double the entertainment instead of having him bow out after 12.5K.
Man, YouTube chat is very fast, really hard to keep up.
Yeah. And I feel bad because anytime we're on chat, then some huge hand, there's a floated pot, and we're like, what happened, guys?
Doug c-bets. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, he's asking how many tables can we play online at once. And heads up is a different animal, though. I think 2 tables is a lot of action for these guys to be playing at once. But tournaments is a lot easier. It's not on you as much, so many more than this.
You got to really focus on your opponent heads up too. Like you're gonna want to make huge deviations to your strategy based on what they're doing, especially if they're not a super studied, like, quote unquote GTO player themselves. They're going to be making a lot of mistakes that you can adjust to. So if you're not like keeping your eye on, every showdown, every action, you're not going to be able to develop those counter strategies. So when you're playing heads up, you tend to play fewer tables, but some people are animals. I mean, there's the classic story of Isildur playing, what was it, 4 tables against Patrick Antonius and 4 tables against Phil Ivey at the same time at like 501K or something like that, 100K buy-in table, something along those lines. If not that savage, slightly less savage, but absolutely insane. So some people can do it.
For 2 opponents, like, I don't know, because you have to adjust to each one. So his brain must just be pretty incredible to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Although he did get whacked that session.
Or he got wrecked, yeah. I was like, hey, I could play 8 tables also if I just lose on all of them.
Yeah, true. Interestingly, so I was talking earlier about Doug's 3-bet sizing being 3,700 over 1K. Right here at 100 big blinds, he made it 4,100 over 1K on the left table in that last hand. So that's interesting to see. He might have decided to make an adjustment, or maybe he's using a larger 3-bet size when deeper. That could be possible. I didn't see when he's used that smaller size, so that's pretty interesting. Could be a thing. I don't know. Small c-bet on king, queen, 9. And a 3-bet pot here from Doug.
Yeah, the upswing course that I was just looking at was all about that, just how much your range changes depending on the size of the open and the size of the 3-bet, and it was pretty drastic. I was surprised.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel raises on the right table versus Doug c-bet in a 3-bet pot. It gets through. Yeah, and then so that's just size. I mean, that's like the most readily available thing is the size of the bet you're facing. But then if you learn things, other variables can come in. So if you learn something about your opponent's strategy, then that's also going to be something you want to adjust to. So, maybe they're opening 2.5x, so you play, the optimal way you think it is against 2.5x, but then you kind of figure that they're maybe opening a little less than they should be. Maybe you're going to fold a little bit more often, or maybe you realize that they're a little bit passive post flop and they're kind of letting you see a lot of turns and rivers for free, meaning you're realizing a lot more equity than you should. That actually allows you to defend even more. And on the other side of the coin there, if you're playing a very aggressive player who's like really putting you to the test on a lot of flops, not really letting you get to showdown and see turns and rivers very easily, that's actually a player you're going to want to fold a little bit more against pre-flop, because you're just not going to realize as much equity with those marginal hands that, might have been slightly profitable opens in theory, but versus that guy, that aggressive guy, they're not necessarily there.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth flush card on the left. Doug finally puts in a bet after checking down. With 9 high, and D-Negs has that 6 of hearts. He's going to win. D-Negs decides to go into bluff catcher mode with that 6 of hearts on the river. I definitely think that that's a hand you could consider betting on the river pretty small for value. I think basically all flushes arguably could be a bet. Maybe check call and bluff catch with the smallest ones, but you can even just use your pairs as bluff catchers in Daniel's spot there. So it doesn't necessarily have to check low flushes in order to have bluff catchers. Interesting spot there.
And Jamo in the Twitch chat picked up on the fact that they are adjusting to the stack depth that they're playing. The deeper they are putting a little bit more on the opens and on the 3-bets. I think they went from, 910 to 940? Something like that.
Chris Protein on YouTube asked, any chance of a replay with commentary where the hole cards can be seen? Unfortunately, no. I don't think there's any way for that to happen. They're not recording their side right now, and as I've said before, there's no hand histories on this site. So there's once this data is gone today, it's gone forever. Unless Doug and D-Negs remember every hand, which they certainly don't. So yeah, not even possible. And then even if it was, very unlikely the players would agree to it, unless it was maybe after the entire challenge was over. But then we're talking hundreds of hours of footage that would exist with hole cards, which granted would be cool. I would take it, but I don't think.
Yeah. I don't know if either of these guys will want to do that because they might have other matches coming up. I feel like when something like this happens, just more challenges kind of come out of the woodwork. We've heard some rumors. I saw on Twitter a conversation that Dan Bilzerian was thinking about hopping in. That would be amazing to play Doug. So, these guys don't really want to give out too much information.
Tippy2000 on YouTube asked, can someone explain the duration? Because it says 12.5K or 25K hands. A lot of you already know this, but at the 12, they agreed to play 25,000 hands, but at the 12,500 hand mark, the player who is losing has the option to quit. It's basically like a quit clause if you're getting wrecked. And there is no side bet on this challenge, so that would not be surrendering a side bet of any kind. Yeah, we did see some interest, the chat's talking about, of Dan Bilzerian stepping in the ring against Doug. Apparently he'd want a big side bet and he apparently said 10-1. That would be something that I would really like to see. Yeah. Dan Bilzerian versus Doug. That would be some good stuff.
I would love a camera though. We can't just have commentary. It would have to just be cameras on both of them. I want the shit talking. It'd be the best part.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be good stuff though. Someone just asked, why is Doug a truck driver? It's because he's backing up the fucking truck right now, trying to load it up with Daniel Negreanu's money, of which he has a lot. Daniel betting small when check to in this 3-bet pot on the right. This is a spot where, again, they're deeper, and yet Doug is using a smaller 3-bet size. So that's interesting to see. I haven't studied heads up in a while and did not know that was a thing, but if Doug's doing it, it is probably a thing. So for you solver nerds out there, that's probably something you're going to want to look into if you didn't already know about it. But then a lot of you probably already did, and then you just think I'm a dunk, but that's fine. Doug check raises on the right table versus that small bet from Daniel on 3-bet pot, and then now he's betting big on this Queen of Spades turn. We've got 2 flush draws now. Taco Jesus asking, does Doug have all of himself? I'm going to answer that for both players. We don't know for sure, of course, but I know Doug pretty well. I'm pretty certain he has a very large percent of himself in this, and I'd say, I don't know Daniel at all, but I'd say he almost certainly has a very, very large percent of himself.
Pretty sure. I heard Mike Mattisau back Daniel on this.
Did he get some sort of infusion of cash?
Oh man, I'm a bit alarmed for Mike Mattisau though. He said he had about a 20K roll. He put 5K on Trump, and I think he put 10K on Daniel, getting 4-1. But I just I'm a bit concerned for him. So if you guys want to kick into his GoFundMe.
Before you kick into his GoFundMe, Daniel, and I hate to disappoint anyone who this is about to disappoint, but Daniel said on the PokerGo live stream of the live part of this match that was a troll, and that quote unquote from Mattisau, Matt Glantz is teaching me how to troll. So if you care about Mike Mattisau's well-being, very, very good news. If you like the Schadenfreude or whatever, then that's I'm sorry to break the bad news to you. C-bet and a 3-bet pot from Daniel on the left. Doug peels. We get the queen turn. Very Broadway heavy board here. Both players are going to hit it pretty hard.
Tony Shido says, thanks guys, go Doug. He paid $2 to say it, so we're reading it.
Yeah, sorry if we miss any of those guys, because we're not always keeping an eye on YouTube. I hate for you guys to spend money and then we don't get the call out. Get the king.
Somebody had a good question before it scrolled through, but what would happen if somebody wanted to quit before the 12.5K hands is up? I don't really know. I haven't seen their actual contract with each other, but I'm sure there was some penalty discussed for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they agreed to play these hands, and both players are very... both players have a lot of integrity, so I would really doubt to see them not go 12,500 hands, barring some sort of extreme emergency. Doug's big bet gets through on the 4 straight river, and his 3-bet gets called on the right table. Again, Doug going with a smaller 3-bet size when they're deeper, 3,700 when deeper, and then he's going 4,100 as a standard. Yankees fan asked, "Wow, $2. LOL. What would you do for 5?" I don't know. Try me, buddy.
You don't want to know.
Brian Bernales says there is a buyout. I have not heard of that, but yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know how I wouldn't, but maybe there's a buyout. maybe that guy knows.
We're like an anchorman where we just read the chat like it's a teleprompter no matter what's on it. Like, oh, there's a contract.
Bet on the turn on the 4 straight board gets called, and the board changes quite a bit on the river on the right. Daniel's gonna win with trips. By the way, one of our biggest pieces of feedback from the last stream, guys, was flip the tables. And if that doesn't make sense to you, it's because in the last session, Doug was on the top seat in one table and the bottom seat in the other, and you guys were having none of it. You were all over us. We can't change the seats. We had no control over that. But I did tell Doug, if you can, I know you're playing a high stakes match, and what the Twitch and YouTube chat wants is not necessarily your number one concern. But if you could, please sit on the same seat on both tables. So I did my best, and we'll see if it keeps up. It was actually Daniel who sat in the same seats on both tables, so maybe his side was sort of telling him the same thing. Maybe your guys' complaints got through. Like maybe it just worked exactly as planned, and they're going to be on the same seats for the rest of the challenge. If not, though, I know we're going to hear about it.
We have Kenna James in the YouTube chat, and he was saying it seems like Doug's winning all the big pots and pushing the action. I'd say that does seem to be the case. Doug's doing a lot more, it seems like he's doing a lot more of the aggressive river actions between the two sessions, so yeah, he's going to create some big pots there. Doug would be a nightmare to try to go for thin value against because he just finds so many raises in spots I'm not expecting it. I feel like maybe that's why we see Daniel check some very strong hands on the river every now and then. Prankster222 says, now we want Doug at the bottom of both tables. We got you, buddy.
Of course. Joey Money with the $2 donation to Doug's channel. He needs it, guys, so keep those coming in. Norman Chad commentating equals plus 10% point edge for Doug. We'll see. We'll see. Tweet at him, maybe he'll do it.
Yeah, we're putting that $2 towards updating the money total. Once we get to like $200, we're gonna have someone counting the dollars won and lost.
Saeed Kareem says, isn't there a risk of them going broke? You said it 4 times. I'm gonna hope that was just on accident, and that you're not spamming, and I'm now sort of rewarding you for that. But I would say not really. There's not really a risk of either playing going broke. Yeah, I don't see it being possible. I think both players have plenty of money, and they have plenty of 40K buy-ins. The question is, though, can they load it onto WSOP? Because WSOP does have to follow the law, and apparently there's a law that you can only deposit $1 million on a poker site per month. Both players did load $1 million, so perhaps there could be a situation where one of the players busts their $1 million and they have to wait until like the window opens back up and they can deposit another $1 million or whatever it is. So that could maybe happen, but that would just cause a delay.
Personally, I've never had to deposit more than 900,000 per month, so I don't really know. That is funny when they hit up WSOP and like, okay, we want to put a few $1 million in the site, and they're like, excuse me? Like, our tables only go up to 2550. How bad are you at poker?
The truth says, do we have an overall total loss that should be put up somewhere? I'm assuming you just want to know where to track the results. So we have the approximate results right to the left over here. That's just someone manually keeping rough track of what's going on because there's no real way to do it in a precise manner. Just so you guys know roughly what the status of the day is. And then if you go to upswingpoker.com/HU4Grudge, which is in the bottom left of your screen, it's a link. If you go there, we're going to update that page with the precise figures when it's over. It's actually over here, by the way. Sorry, I was pointing the wrong way. We have a large bet from Daniel in a 3-bet pot here. That is the first time we've seen that. It's a paired board. That is actually when I'd expect smaller bets, but I could definitely see like a big betting range being included with small bets. So perhaps that's how Daniel's approaching it. But he does go for the large bet. And on the left, he checks in a 3-bet pot. 2 3-bet pots here, both with Daniel as the 3-better out of position. Someone just asked, who's this art piece of? It's Louis Brandeis. He's a former Supreme Court justice.
Oh man, we're huge dorks. I have behind me an I dissent sticker from RBG. This is why we're not good at poker. Too dorky.
Doug gets it through on the right after calling the big bet and then betting the turn one check too.
Atheist for the cause says Daniel's just toying with his prey. He knows Doug's gonna have to wait to load more money anyways. Smart. So he's just gonna drag this out for 29 days, scoop a cool milli off him the last day, and have him reload.
Yeah, it's only 25 buy-ins. It's doable, depending on how many hands. We have a 3/4 pot bet from Daniel on the left on Queen 6-4. Daniel once again using that larger sizing here. He seems to have those two sizes on the flop. He either bets 400 into 2K for a fifth pot, or he bets 1500 into 2K for a larger bet. Seems to be the slightly more middling dynamic boards that he chooses to use the larger bet, as you'd kind of intuitively expect. Goes check, check on the turn.
They said, what about Vanessa Selves commentating? I think it'd be hard for her to commentate and play at the same time.
That's true. Don Variance says, what is this anarchism? It's a commonly known rule that the tables need to be given stupid names on 2 table streams. We did actually name the tables, but we just didn't put them up because we thought you guys would be able to keep up with this. The table on with the ace queen 4 flop that you see, that's the left table. And then the table with queen 8, where Doug just put in a really small check raise, that's the right table. Ooh, Daniel puts in the 3-bet. Interesting. I'm not sure that's a thing. There are deep, and it was a small raise, so it probably is actually. He 3-bets on the queen 8 flop. So it went D-neg C-bets 400 into 2K. Doug makes it 900, almost comically small raise, and then he makes it gets back to Daniel. He makes it like 3,200 or something. That gets through on the river for Doug.
What kind of hands do you think Daniel puts in there on that board? It's a weird spot to check raise, isn't it? I'm sorry, to find a raise at all. Queen 8.
For Doug's check raise that board?
Yeah, I was saying, what do you think Daniel can have there?
When he 3-bets?
Yeah, like you said, you don't think it's a thing. I was just wondering if you were to make that a thing, what kind of hands would be in your range?
Well, certainly the best queens would probably consider getting in there, but I think pocket 8s would make a lot of sense too, because you don't block a queen, and then you beat a queen. Yeah, probably. I'm not really sure exactly how you'd choose bluffs there, because nothing really has. I mean, I guess you'd want to probably have gutters or something like that. But yeah, typically you don't have a 3-bet range versus check raises heads up, because it just generally works out a little bit better, easier to protect your whole range when you play your whole range as a call. But in that specific instance, it was pretty extreme. It was a lot of factors kind of went in the direction of 3-betting should happen sometimes, because Daniel bet very small, which he should be doing with a wide range. Doug then raises very small, which he should be doing with a wide range. So by the time it gets back to Daniel, we're actually still talking about a pretty wide range spot, considering it was a check raise. And someone was... No, go on.
I was going to say there's a lot of variance in the chat. Sometimes there's 10 comments I could read, and sometimes there's 2 screens of comments I cannot read out loud.
You'll have to see it. Check on this river. Doug's gonna win with ace high. Someone just asked, can anyone provide the commentator names? My name is Mike Brady. I'm the VP of Upswing Poker. Kind of handle the content over there, some of the marketing efforts, and then we have Jamie Kerstetter. Would you like to say anything about yourself? Describe yourself. What do you do?
I was head of jokes on YouTube.
Poker division.
Yes. I miss making videos really bad, I hope. So if Doug unretired from Heads Up No Limit Hold'em, I feel like he might also unretire from making YouTube videos.
That would be pretty nice. Let's get some F's in the chat if you want to see some new Doug YouTube videos out of all this, guys. Let's see it. I promise to screenshot these F's and then send them to Doug. Doug winning a nice little pot there with the sevens on the king high board. Just wait a moment said, basically, let's hear it for D-Neg's chat. He's playing good considering blah, blah, blah. He says a bunch of other things. I agree with the sentiment that Daniel, it's very impressive he went through and played this challenge. A lot of respect to Daniel for doing that. And he's also, he hasn't, maybe he's made some mistakes, but he's overall played like, he's not a pushover, not a total pushover by any means. Seems to be playing pretty good. He's using small bet sizes. He's clearly studied for this match. So credit to Daniel.
And actually, the way this is structured, I think Daniel did this a smart way. I feel like it's a lot to take in. If you've been studying this for a month and you've gotten pretty good at it, but if you got into an 8-hour session where you're not as confident as the other player in all your plays because you've only been learning this for a little while, I feel like that could get really ugly. But the fact that it's 2-hour sessions, he gets little bite-sized sessions, he can go back and ask his team and feel good about coming back to the next one.
Brian Bacallis asks, how much does the Upswing Heads Up course cost? So there's a couple options there. You can get Doug's Heads Up course. That's $1K. It came out a few years ago. There's also a great module in the Upswing Lab, which is only $99 to get in, $99 a month if you want to keep it. There's a great module in there called Heads Up 101. Check that out if you want to learn Heads Up. Very basic, but covers the flop and pre-flop. So, great start. Check back from Daniel after c-betting on the left. Doug wins with a king. Winsanity, any chance Daniel took the course? I'm going to say no.
I know during the Dentali and Kate Hall grudge match, that was pretty hilarious to watch. Kate took the whole Doug course. She had copious notes on it, and then she absolutely wrecked Dentali. So that was some good advertising for Upswing. I don't know how Daniel would feel listening to Doug's voice for that many hours. I don't think he could do it.
No, he wouldn't do it. Lurky Longtime asks, how high is the rake in this match? It's actually 0 rake. They're giving it back to the players. WSOP is. So yeah, this is a 0 rake challenge. Check down pot on the left, and Doug's gonna put in the first post flop bet. Quick call from Daniel. Doug wins with a king that he turned.
What's Fold with a good question here, talking about the EV of Daniel's career. If this match could actually have been smart for him, even if he loses a lot of money, to improve his game in the future and potentially win some more bracelets. He's lost a bunch heads up for bracelets, so I'd have to think that getting really deep into heads up for a month straight with good coaches will help him in the long run. Yeah,
most certainly. We see an overbet from Doug here on the right. Yeah, just on that, just being a good heads up player makes you a much, much better poker player overall. It's a very technical game, requires a really, really in-depth knowledge of it. And a lot of people who play heads up tend to be really good at other game types too. So yeah, this is definitely going to be good for Daniel's career, win or lose. And he can definitely afford to lose anyway. See what Doug decides to do after overbetting the turn here. He jams all in for 3x pot. That's almost 4x pot. Wow, let's see what Daniel decides to do. Yeah, 3x pot. Not almost 4x pot at all. That is a very large bet.
I'm going to say at the stakes that I play, this would be for value about 1,000% of the time.
Indeed. This could be a cookie jar situation, though, like someone just suggested.
I just want to speculate what kind of hands would do this. Like, would 6-3 do this, knowing he has to turn his pair into a bluff where he has blockers to the nuts? Like, what kind of hands do this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you almost certainly want to have you're going to want to have a blocker of some kind. Whether it be like blocking the pair that you think is important to block, because maybe you want to block certain two pairs. So, for example, like having a hand like 5-6 here could make sense because you block the hand, the exact, yeah, exactly. So we see a Doug scoop a big pot here. Daniel, that's a really, really tough spot for Daniel in the river. But that exact situation, when you have 5-6 in Doug's spot, you block a hand like King 5, a river 2 pair, and that's sort of the most risk. That's like the most likely hand that he could have that's very strong that will call you. So you'd probably want to have a hand like 5-6 there, and you block the straight with a hand like that as well.
I mean, that was awesome. How does Doug know he can get paid there? That's just incredible.
Yeah, that is pretty sick. I mean, he's likely thinks Daniel just doesn't have any straights there, so it's almost as if the straights being in is irrelevant. So then when it comes down to that, he's only really beat by a set with his hand. And yeah, I mean, it's the nuts at that point.
Yeah, I just mean, how do you know not to just value bet 3/4 pot and instead goes for like 4x pot? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, really crazy. Daniel cannot be happy about that. Doug has now taken a commanding, roughly 110k lead in this match. And now we have, in this session, I should say, and then D-Negs gets his 4-bet through on the left to get a little bit of that back.
I love you, chat. I'm trying to find that one to just move so fast. His name was Sean, but talking about how he thinks Daniel's reacting to seeing Doug's hand there. This is why we need a player cam on both of them, just for those moments.
Oh, player cam would be so good. That's something they could theoretically agree to too, because it's not actually like showing anything off. But then again, it's also like, who wants to like just have a camera in their home all the time? I don't really blame them for not wanting to, but would be very entertaining.
And then Doug would have to, like iron his tank tops and stuff.
Yeah, true. D-Negs with no sit out. We saw him sit out, I think, 3 of like the 4 times that he lost a big pot yesterday to take, presumably a quick breather. And it could have just been coincidence, like maybe he had to go to the bathroom anywhere or something. But yeah, no sit out here, so he's ready. Big pots not phasing him, at least not his avatar. Doug, of course playing great, but definitely running very well so far in the online section of the challenge. He's won a couple pre-flop coolers that, could have went either way. If the hands were swapped, it probably would have went the same. And then he had that 2-pair just then with the King 7 versus the King 5 on the King 7-5 XX board. That wasn't the flop, but those are the relevant cards. Though, that said, it's quite unlikely that Daniel would get the same amount of value that Doug would have got there, barring like Doug check shoving the river or something in reverse if the shoes were reversed. But so yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, looking forward to asking him about that river decision, because obviously when you're overbetting that much, if you get called a certain percentage of the time, let's say he gets called 25% of the time, then that's just as good as value betting 9 or 10K there, right? But I just want to know what makes you pull the trigger for 4x pot there instead of going for the obvious value bet, and would love to just know like how you put Daniel on a strong enough hand to want to catch that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fundamental reason for making a bet like that is when you bet larger, your opponents aren't getting as good of pot odds, so you actually get to bluff with more hands. So you essentially get to, assuming you're doing so with the right range, you actually win the pot more often. Yeah, how he actually timed it that well with top 2 pair or top and third pair versus a slightly worse 2 pairs, pretty impressive. Someone in YouTube, sorry I missed the name, asked, can they reload to 40 at any time? It's actually mandatory. They have to top up to 40,000 if they get below it. 100 big blind challenge is the minimum. And yes, 40K is the max. If Daniel did want to buy in for 100,000, he can't, right? Like, so in order to cover Doug or get close to covering Doug, he could not do that. Doug rivering the straight with Queen 9 gets the value bet.
I don't know if chat knows this either, but Doug has committed all of his winnings to a fund of billboards all over Vegas. He's going to buy up every single billboard. Right, Brady?
I believe that's true, and we actually are looking for suggestions. If you guys would like to, if you guys would like to suggest what billboards we should go with, please drop it in the chat. Some of you might have seen the More Rake is Better billboard, but maybe a different one. What ideas you got? Daniel Negreanu paid for this billboard. That's a good one. Doug Polk's truck driving school. Very good, very good.
Just put a bunch of steak photos. That's messed up.
Yeah, like the closest billboard to his house. Just get it make it like a collage of steaks, essentially.
Oh.
The Rising Exile asked billboards ? So I assume you and I'm assuming other people are not familiar with the billboard situation a few years ago. Go ahead and Google More Rake is Better billboard, and you will be caught up. More Rake is Better billboard.
That was a serious investment. That was commitment to a troll.
Players agreed to play 2 hours for 4 days a week, and we are coming up on that 2-hour mark now. About 18 minutes left until we hit it. They might have started a couple minutes late, so give or take. Janfi11 asked, how childish can you be? Very.
Very childish. We could do better. Wow. So Flameboy says that this challenge will be over in 12.5K hands, and Doug's going to win $3.5 million. I think you have to run pretty good to win that much in only half the challenge.
That would be tough, but who knows? 3-bet pot on the left, we see Doug checking on 10-5-4. And D-Neg c-betting on the right for his usual quarter pot or 5th pot minimum bet, though he does also use the larger bet sometimes.
Turtle Shell says deliver a rake to Daniel every single day for a whole year. It would be really funny just thinking of like day 365. He's like, is this ever going to stop?
Might qualify as harassment at that point. 2100 bet on the turn on the right gets called from Daniel, and then the 3-bet pot on the left has been checked down to this point. We get the Jack River. Doug can definitely have some hands like Ace Queen here. Daniel with 2-pair on the right. He's going to get 3 straights of value with that hand. Nice size pot over to him. Daniel bets the river when checked 2 in the 3-bet pot and takes it down.
Maybe we could have some kind of compromise. I know chat wants to see a camera on DNegs during this. Maybe if Doug agrees to another live portion of a couple hundred hands, DNegs will do a player cam. That would be sweet.
Could see it happening. Maybe if you guys tweet at him enough, they'll do it. I've heard that works really well. Coming up on likely the last 15 minutes of this particular session, we are going to be back on Wednesday. Is the next session, and then Friday after that, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same time, 2:30. These guys seem to be creatures of habit, so it's probably going to be a pretty consistent like 2:30 time, maybe every other day. We'll update you on both our socials and Upswing socials, I should say, and Doug Polk socials. Daniel, I'm sure, will tweet about it too. Yeah, it'll likely be the next stream Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. PT. I believe that's 10:30 p.m. GMT. 10-8-2 rainbow board here in the 3-bet pot. Doug checks it over to Daniel. Second time in a row he's checked over to Daniel after 3-betting on a 10 high board. And he gets the 10 on the turn. Check again.
You might know this. Did Doug actually make his name Microstakes when he was doing the Bankroll Challenge? He didn't have a name before that on WSOP?
It was weird. He did. At one point it was like, at one point it was just something else, and then he was doing that challenge, and WSOP changed it, I think, to Doug Polk, if I remember correctly. Like, I guess it was for marketing maybe, because they wanted people to see Doug Polk was playing on their Microstakes tables. And then eventually it ended up just being Microstakes. I don't know how this all happened. I wish I had more answers, but that was roughly the order of what happened. But he was finishing the challenge with the screen name. They'll likely be playing again for only another like 13 minutes or so. Just saw someone ask. Doug 3-betting on the left, and it gets through.
We got to get Doug to do an interview at some point.
Yeah.
Everyone asks for it every time, and the Negreanu one is very funny last time. So, we should get Doug at some point. I feel like he's so casual, though. He'll be like, yeah, whatever. Played poker.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he does not hop on for an interview too often. But that said, I think we'll get him on sometimes. Ty on Tilt says, I vaguely remember a merge WSOP did. Maybe they made him have to make a new name. That would make sense, because they did merge the player pools at one point, so maybe they like reset all the usernames. That would make a lot of sense. And then at that point, Doug chose Microstakes.
Yeah.
Someone just asked if we can mute Discord notifications. I've seen that a couple times. I'm not sure which one of us has the Discord notifications, but we will make sure that doesn't happen next time.
Yeah,
I mean,
feeling self-conscious. So I put disabled sounds on all mine, but I still feel like, who else could it be, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, I'm yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm getting notified, but yeah, we'll have it. We'll have that figured out next time. Sorry if that's bothering any of you. DNig's 2.5xing on both tables on the button.
Sorry, guys. I'm a little bit like not the best with tech. I've literally clicked every sound off button possible.
3-bet from Daniel gets called by Doug on the left. Small c-bet on the dry board, as expected. Call from Doug. 2 hearts turn. Doug betting the turn after Daniel check back the flop on the right. And Daniel does call. Daniel double barreling on the left in a 3-bet pot. And Doug raises. Could see this pot start to balloon. This sets up about a river shove, pot-sized river shove. And Daniel raises on the right versus a second bet from Doug. A couple interesting spots here. So Doug bet the turn after Daniel checked back the flop on the right. Then Daniel called, and then he followed through with a bet, which Daniel raises. On the left, Daniel 3-bet. Doug called. Daniel c-bet small on the flop, then double barreled, also small. And then at that point, Doug put in a nice sized raise. See what happens in both these spots. Doug checks back with king high and actually wins it with king high here versus the worst king high. Did not expect to see 2 king highs in that 40K pot, but there it was. Interesting raise on the turn from Doug, blocking both ace king and ace jack, 2 of the hands that Daniel is most likely to have that will certainly call a turn raise.
Oh yeah, and sorry guys, anyone who's asking questions, the chat is moving so fast. If you tweet at us or at Upswing, you'll get an answer. If it's a burning question, you can't sleep at night.
Yeah, if something's real important, tweet at Upswing and we'll definitely answer you at some point. Maybe not on the stream, but you'll get answered. Three bet from Doug on the left, and the c-bet gets through on the right. C-bet from Doug on the left, and the 3-bet pot gets through. Daniel with 2. Yeah, this is not a situation you want to find yourself in. An hour and 53 minutes into a session, and you have 2 topped up, fresh starting stacks. Ooh, it's not a good feeling. Not a good feeling. Yeah. Especially looking over and seeing your opponent with 6 figures. 8 if you include the cents. Three bet from Daniel on the left. Sorry, I got a dog barking.
I feel like the only rule for Twitch streaming is if the dog is barking, you must show the dog.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Jen, could you bring me the dog, please?
Yay!
All right, this is a dog, everyone.
Yay!
Sorry to... Yep. I know some of you are going to say it's not a dog because it's too small. I've heard it all. C-bet from Daniel in the 3-bet pot on the left. Large C-bet this time. Now she's mad. She heard you guys. After the large c-bet, Doug jams on that really draw-heavy board and gets the fold. Three-bet from Daniel. He's going to need to win a lot of three-bet pots in order to come out on top in this session, and he's going to have to win them fast. Gets through.
Yeah, I don't know how you usually play, but I feel like I really don't like the feeling of going to sit at a cash session when I know I have to leave at a certain time. That's not the best feeling. When you know there's 2 hours, he's like, okay, there's 5 minutes left, and you're stuck a lot. That is not good.
For sure. Even though it's illogical, it's definitely hard to not have that added variable of I'm leaving at this point affect your play somehow, even subconsciously. So yeah, for sure, I think it's definitely a thing. Raise on the river from Doug now after the check down and big bet from Daniel on the river. He folds. By big, I mean, 75% in a pot that had no bets so far.
Yeah, anything that's not 4x pot, but from now on I'll be like, he made a small bet.
For the grudge match, it's a small bet.
Yeah.
Bet on the turn from Daniel after checking back the flop. Gets called and the backdoor flush comes in. Daniel definitely has a lot of hands like weak aces and kings that want to be value betting the turn and potentially value betting this river. They also both can have some flushes, though Doug would probably bet the turn with a lot of his flush draws, though certainly not all of them. Bet gets through from Daniel. Pot side.
Jam incoming. I always feel like that too. You've just seen Doug just be so aggressive on rivers that anytime a jam is possible, I'm like, of course it's coming.
Yeah, he is relentless. Pretty much, there aren't many players that are like this, I don't think. Of course I'm biased, but if you look up Doug's cash game, live cash game, history, playing on televised games, they're almost in every session, there tends to be a pot where he's just barreling huge or raising huge in a huge spot. I mean, it's pretty rare. I mean, he's probably only played in these sessions 7 times or so, but it feels like he's 7 for 7, 6 for 7. He likes to mix it up. Daniel with the small turn probe on the left table, very dynamic board. Doug puts in the raise. Likely going to be one of our last hands here as the players agreed to play 2 hours for 4 days a week. And we are coming up on the 2-hour mark. The raise does get called. See what D-Negs wants to do here. Likely going to be a check with his entire range. Doug quickly checks back a 5. Wow, really thin raise for value on the turn with the 5. Versus a larger bet size from Daniel, I would be very, very surprised to see something like that from Doug. But when Daniel bets 400 into 1800, it's actually very similar to checking. Betting the minimum is as close as you can get to checking, especially out of position. It's very comparable. So Doug essentially treated that bet as very close to a check and decided to put in a value raise with, pretty marginal made hand with a 5 on I believe it was a queen high board or something. All he had was second pair. And it worked out. Couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you said, they're going to play 4 days a week, 2 hours. If every day goes like this for Daniel, do you think he would rather play Doug or go get a root canal?
It's a good question. I'm gonna imagine. I don't know. He's quite money. I could see someone as rich as him being 50K in equity to avoid a root canal. Sure. Trips on the left now after 1 bet winning on the flop from Daniel, his usual minimum bet on these drier boards. It goes to showdown and Doug gets lucky. They're going to play trips with an ace queen. Though most rivers would have chopped it. C-bet called on the left. Small C-bet out of here from Doug on the right. Daniel's bet gets through on the river on the left.
People in the chat discussing the odds going to 10-1 after this. I'm wondering if people are making bets mid-game, mid-match, how that would work. But yeah, I agree. It probably would skew in Doug's favor, unless there's a lot of live poker being played, which Daniel seems to think you have the edge at.
Both players missing a flush draw. Daniel definitely thankful he did on the right table there with the King of Hearts versus Doug's Ace of Hearts, but Doug does win a showdown. Small pot.
Turtle Shell calling for Doug to comment after this game. I would love for Doug to comment after this game. I feel like it's going to be a tough sell for Doug, who probably just wants to play some kind of video game.
I do know for a fact that immediately after the sessions end, Doug is doing studying because he sent a message in a group chat I'm in with him 2 hours, basically 2 hours after the session on Friday, saying just finished studying. So it seems like he's studying directly after the sessions. That said, I'm sure he'll be down to hop in the booth with us at some point for an interview, just talk about the match so far. Just won't be today. Looks like that's likely going to be it. Let's see what happens in this last hand. So guys, we are going to be back Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. GMT for the next round of this match, and then the players will also be back on Friday. Keep in mind, the days are for sure correct, Wednesday and Friday. The times could change, but I expect it to be 2:30 back here at the same time. So it looks like Doug is going to book a very, very strong win in this next round of the challenge. His win is, we don't have the exact number yet. We will on upswingpoker.com/headsupforgrudge pretty soon. We'll have that up when Doug gets it to us. Doug will also probably tweet it. So if you're not following Doug, go check him out. And he will tweet the result. But it looks like Doug is probably going to be up about 300K overall now that this session is over. Yes, a couple people speculating in chat it's over 200K. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see it being that much. So he's going to be up 300K now in this challenge, just under 8 buy-ins, I believe. So yeah, pretty strong start for Doug, especially after the week start when he played live and lost a couple buy-ins, or 3 buy-ins. So yeah, good stuff. This was a wolf for Doug, who I'm a fan of. Any closing thoughts on this one, Jamie?
I can't wait to hear about the hands from Doug. I want to hear about that river over bet. That was just crazy. 4 times pot, 2 pair versus 2 pair. Looking forward to that one. Also, anyone who asked questions that they really wanted answers to, you could tweet at me at Jamie Kerstetter at Upswing Poker. Brady, where are you at?
MBradyCF at MBradyCF. Go ahead and tweet at me if you have any questions, or Upswing Poker. I look at those as well.
Sweet. This has been fun. Thank you, chat, for all your questions and comments that I was able to read. Thank you for the comments I was not able to read as well. They were the ones last minute. But yeah, awesome. Hopefully to see